The game
Yes,
Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide.
Dark Tide. Fuck. I do the same thing. I just like whenever it's like an awkward cut like that, I don't know what I'm saying. I just cut it off too early. I just cut it
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah. You just give up. You just throw in the towel.
Hey guys, hey guys, first regardsman
40K
here.
here.
Hey
You're gonna
guys,
say.
40K. Hey guys, first regardsman here. Hey guys, first regardsman here. I'll be talking about a new Skitarii class for Dark Tide with Mystery. Now, you've talked about the Skitarii before. I'm curious to hear your current opinion about having this class added to 40K Dark Tide, and just like where you think it would fit in the class dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, I still definitely stand by it. It is still absolutely my favorite pick. I know there's a lot of people in the Sister Battle camp, a couple people in the Rattling camp, right? And then there's scattered other survivors out there. But as far as like what I see people demanding, AdMech of some sort has got to be at the top of the list. I think Skitarii is like a very, very popular choice just because, I mean, there are so many awesome weapons and sort of like just like ideas you could draw from to like make this class
It's
feel
very
super
thematic.
cool. Yeah, and it would fit within lore too, which we can talk about in a minute, I guess. But yeah, I still super want that to happen. I just unfortunately don't see it happening like for class number 6 here, but they've already told us that there's more classes on the way. I think probably they'll cap out at 8. But time remains to tell.
I would be shocked if one of those was not a Skitarii or at least some kind of AdMech.
Right.
Now, I think it'd be pretty easy for them to like lean into a tech aspect for this because you have things like the Arbites, like the Cybermastiff and stuff like that. It's a very thematic class. It's very easy just to like, okay, this is the Lex, you are the judge, and things like that. It's substantially different from the other classes in the game. And like I think we talked off stream about this or off video about how it would be pretty easy to have the Skitarii basically play as like a caster melee hybrid versus having like a pure range character, basically like the
Mhm.
veteran, which is like he's kind of a hybrid, but like he's really supposed to be focused on range. And you have like the Ogren and Arbites are like all melee all the time. So I'm kind of curious what you think about that.
Yeah, so this was my initial idea, like way back right after RBDs came out. I made a video like less than a month later, being like, hell yeah, the next class needs to be Skitarii, and it was like pretty much like that was my idea. It's like, yeah, we've already got 3 almost exclusively ranged characters. Then whatever the next one is needs to be like have a ranged like lean to it, so that we're like diversifying the playstyles in the game. And for Skitarii, like that would be a very obvious choice because they have so many different like types of ranged weapons. They've got ones that can like paint targets and then fire seeker missiles after them. They've got ones that like basically give the enemy radiation poisoning and like wither their health away. Yeah, they've got so many crazy like technological wonders in lore.
Yeah, they could go way farther than they did with the Arbites. For
Mhm.
Arbites, like they are primarily like shock maulers and like beat cops occasionally for a lot of the
Yeah.
planets, and that is represented properly in their loadout. Where you have the Arbites shock maul, you have the extermination shotgun or the exterminator shotgun, and of course the cyber mastiffs like the huge draw for that. What do you think the huge draw for a Skitarii class would be? Because this would kind of have to bang. I think new classes are like
I
some of the most
think
important aspects of any horde shooter, so they'd be pretty on the nose with like,
yeah.
okay, this is what we're trying to sell you with
I
our new
it
class.
depends on like what like, I don't know what they're trying to do. Like I really want to see what they're doing with this 6th class, which I'm thinking is Ganger, but we can talk about that in a different video, or maybe we already have. I don't know. But the like I think they might try to do like something special for each of these classes. If they've got the dog as like the extra special thing for that, what if they can come up with like some like new mechanic that only the Skitarii can use? And like I was thinking, a lot of Skitaris like replace parts of their bodies, or they have extra cybernetic limbs, and basically you just end up like having an augment that actually affects your gameplay and is physically on your character, like the ability to, I don't know, interact with like extra things at a time, or like hold a second range weapon. Something crazy, I don't know, something crazy like that just kind of like, you need to set the gameplay apart. It can't just be like weapons, right? That's too lame at this point, because we've already got the shooty guy, that's the veteran. We've already got the magic guy, that's the psyker. So if you're gonna do that, you need to either you probably just need to make the weapons like super impressive and very much thematic with the lore, which I think Dark Tide Fetchark always do a great job with, like making their weapons like pop, but also like give it something like really interesting like that to play around with. where yeah, you can like augment yourself and have all these different cool abilities.
I think having an augment would be really cool. Like you make like a melee focused Skitarii versus a range
Hmm.
focused Skitarii. I think they should always stay within like that hybrid archetype, but having like these kind of like niche mechanics to these classes, I think that's what really separates the Dark Tide from a lot of other horde shooters on the market currently. Is that you really can properly customize your character on like a very like minute level. It's like similar to an MMO in a lot of ways like that
Hmm.
because currently most of the horde shooters on the market are pretty simplistic. Like Helldivers doesn't really have that. Space Marine 2 definitely doesn't have that.
Hmm.
And some of the older ones, like, Killing Floor 3 isn't even a game anymore. But as far as Dark Tide goes with its new
They shut the
classes,
servers
they've
down for
really
that, right?
put. Yeah, I mean, they're still up. They're still up for
Oh,
now.
for now.
But the point is that Dark Tide, for all the faults of Fat Shark, they do a great job on their overall balancing and like
Yeah,
trying
and
to put some effort into like reworking their perk trees and stuff like that. And I expect the Skitarii would have a pretty unique aspect. And having these augments, I think that's a great idea. I think that really fits the theme of a Skitarii in general, which is supposed to be like you have basically been the premium of the Adeptus
yeah,
Mechanicus, and having these elite units in Dark Tide, I think it's about time for something like that.
it also just like there's elite players, and obviously the meta will be what the meta is. For many players at the very like high end of the game, the sweats will always optimize the fun at everything, and so like there will be a best
Sure.
thing, right? If you have like a choice of 3 different augments that make the class play like super different, they'll find the one that's the best. But for many players, like that's just added value. Like if you're not a super serious player, you're getting to play this class in like 3 very distinct ways, which is something that I think that they try to do with a lot of Dark Tide classes, but don't really like nail. And there's classes like the Zealot who pretty much just have like, their distinct ways of playing are like stab aggressively, stab sneakily. So I think that they
Yeah,
could,
Zealot's pretty
yeah, I
pretty
think they could
straightforward on that
definitely
front. Yeah.
play into that sort of thing and really like try to diversify, because that's something about that's very like that's something that's very like much a hallmark of the Skitarii, is that they are modular. Like they can augment themselves for
Very
different
adaptable.
environments. Yeah, they like literally are able to just like disassemble themselves and reassemble themselves with different parts to fit different environs. And I talk about that in my Skitarii video, like going into like they're like the different branches of Skitarii, where like there are very clear cut ones that are just like designed to be like frontline tanks, like they're melee wielders that have like basically they have like suits of armor that are powered by I don't remember, it's not like uranium, but it's a radioactive energy source, and it's like they irradiate themselves but also like
Oh,
all the
that's
enemies
cool.
nearby them. So it would be like and they're called Vanguard. So I think that would be like an obvious choice, and it was like looking at those was just so in the codex for them is like you could very easily like 1-to-1 see how that could be brought into a game. And I think that like I can't think of like any games, at least in like modern era, that have really had Skitarii or AdMech, and I think that's probably a big part of like the demand for it, is like Fat Shark would realize it really well, and make it feel cool to
Yeah, the
play.
AdMech are primarily in like RTS games at the moment,
Hmm.
which is kind of interesting, and or just like turn-based strategy like Adeptus Mechanicus 2 that's coming out pretty soon here.
Yeah,
Now, on the note of like casual players finding more value in classes like this, like multiple play styles, I think that's a great point. In that most players, like when they come back to Dark Tide for a brand new class, they're gonna be like, okay, I want to try out all the builds, and then I'll quit playing. It's like the more
yeah.
builds you have for these classes, the more you can talk about, the longer players are going to stay around. I think that's what Fast Shark does want, obviously, to some degree, and having a Skitarii in the game, I think it's a great option for that. And even though AdMech in general are just like one of the most popular things in 40k. Skitarii are unique even among AdMech, which is why I think they've been basically asked for since the game came out. Because I first heard about Skitarii and Darktide as like a requested thing when it like in the initial beta launch period,
Yeah.
because it really does just like fit the reject aesthetic. And a big issue people were having in the game of like having a Skitarii actually added is that they're just too elite for where
Yeah.
Darktide's currently at. But
Yeah.
like after the addition of the RBDs, I feel like people just don't really care anymore because
It's
RBDs, they're not like super elite, but they're pretty up
they're
there
definitely
for like
way
a lot
more
of
elite than
cases.
what rejects are supposed to be. And in the other thing that, and I made this again, I made this point in my video about it, is like, okay, like, you know, it doesn't really necessarily matter that like, oh yeah, they're technically more powerful or whatever than the rejects. Well, first of all, like rejects as they play like in the game are more powerful than the Space Marines. It certainly feels like
Oh,
they're
definitely at times
crazy,
it feels like it really
but
depends what they're fighting, but, like, Plague Ogrins and
yeah,
stuff like that, it gets
you
kinda
can like
nuts.
solo up like Ogre as some like chump in a fucking piece of cloth. But
Named
the
Ogryn,
the rule of cool is the first thing that applies here, right? It's just if
especially these
you
days.
if you can like make it work, you can make the lore work around it. And that really comes down to, I think the biggest question that Fat Shark will have to answer, or like, for themselves, is like, how can we get GW to let us do this? Because for so far, they've sort of treaded this like kind of untrodden path, right? Like RBDs and is kind of a recognizable property. Like there's been some pretty recent materials that have had like an RBD's focus, but like zealots and ogrins and all that stuff are not really like big fixtures in the lore. Psychers are a little bit more important, but the more and the closer you get to like I don't know what you call it, the most precious IP of GW, the more they're gonna,
Astartes,
yeah,
Adeptus
yeah.
Mechanicus,
There's
they become very,
there's a
close to home with that
reason,
one.
I think, in addition to the fact that like it's just not the power scale of the game, that they aren't like they haven't like put Plague Marines or anything in yet. And I think it's probably because like, yeah, they need to get that approval. Like you have to sign off on something that says like, oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, if you
we're
wanna
gonna have
have
rejects
a
kill a
Death
Plague
Guard
Marine. It's
yeah, if
like
you wanna have Death Guard in Darktide, yeah,
yeah,
they're not gonna let that slide because they wanna have like,
it
they will just refuse to have their Astartes look weak ever,
right.
so you'd
It
have
would
to
have to
have,
be
like,
some sort
a
of set
serious
piece.
mission around it,
Yeah.
yeah, it had to be
It'd be
pretty
like a
big.
full thing, like a whole ass endeavor in order to like not even, maybe you wouldn't even kill them, but like wound them and they retreat or something like crazy like that. So yeah, like I think that's probably one of the things they'll come up against in adding a Skitarii or any class that's in AdMech, is like it's just such a more popular
They could
thing.
be ramping up the power scale for something like that, where they wanna add in more
It
powerful
could be.
characters. Because like, well, I think part of it could be that the Arbites, obviously it launched alongside the Rogue Trader DLC, so, like, Arbites, I feel, will probably be stronger thematically or, like, in lore than the next class we get. We don't know what the next class is yet.
Right.
I don't think it will be a Skitarii. I imagine Skitarii will probably come out next year, if they know
They
which, because like you
have
said
to be
before, they
pushing
might
for
have, like,
Skitarii, yeah. It's not, I don't think it's this
at
one,
least
but
a tech adept at the very
yeah,
least, but
it's
they're
got
definitely
to be
pushing
on
for
their
AdMech.
radar, because like they're not blind. Like when I pull my audience, when you pull your audience, they're all saying we want AdMech, we want Skitarii. Like that's the number one demand out of people, followed shortly by Sister Battle. I for a number of reasons, and we can talk about that in a different video. I don't really think Sister Battle would be like a fit for Darktide,
Yeah,
just
they're
because
just
we've already got
Zealots
the Zealot.
2.0
We've already
pretty
got the
much.
Zealot kind
Zealots
of.
2.0 except
Zealot
OP
with
is pretty much what they
titties,
are,
yeah,
yeah.
pretty much, yeah, like blessed in titties. And yeah, so I just don't think like that's probably coming, but 100% they have heard our calls on Skitarii, on AdMech, and like they've got to be looking for a way to do it, because like at the end of the day, it's such a cool idea. Like if I was a game dev, I would 100% want to be developing for that, because there's so many cool like fucking ideas you could explore there, but also like the paycheck at the end of
Like
the day has got to be
team buffs,
massive.
DPS output, or like just
Yeah,
playing like a
there's
general support class. There are a lot of cool things you could do, like having a more, I'm glad you brought up the Psyker before, because
mm,
Psyker is like the only class in baseline Darktide that has like an entirely unique mechanic and the peril mechanic around
yeah.
it. I always thought that was pretty interesting. Like gives you an entirely different thing to play around with. And that was in baseline Darktide. So like clearly Fat Shark will go above and beyond in like some cases to like really change up how some
Hmm.
characters play. Now, obviously, that's a little similar to like the heating mechanic of the Bright Wizard in Vermintide, but still, I do think that Darktide in particular, Fat Shark in particular, is willing to really go all out with new class ideas
Yeah,
and
I think
completely
so.
change up the playstyles, and Skitarii give them a ton of room to work within that. So hopefully Games Workshop does give them the green light to actually put in Skitarii, or at least like a tech adept or something like that, because we already have Adeptus Mechanicus in Darktide on the ship. We have Hadron and things like that. So being able to actually play as these guys, I think that's huge for players and just gives them a ton of gameplay
Yeah,
opportunities.
I just think it's probably like, it's been only 6 months or less than that even since we've gotten the RBs added, which I think they were kind of like down to the wire on getting that out. But it's probably going to be very involved to develop the AdMech, because like it's so potentially it's so different. And I think that like if they were going to release it, they'd want to do it absolute justice, because it is such a beloved property, and
Oh, it would be the biggest class
it would
Tolkien's
be
ever had
way
by
bigger than
far.
RBDs and way bigger than whatever else. That I really can't honestly think of
I would be
anything
shocked.
that's
I'd be
would
shocked
be
if there
like
was anything they
non-Space
could come
Marine that
out
would
with.
be bigger.
Yeah,
So
you'd have
like
to have like a
they
Space
gotta
Marine
nail
to
it,
maybe
right?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, like they gotta
Oh,
nail
big
it,
time.
and like but, like there's so much potential to put like something really crazy and unique with it that I kind of feel like they would probably want to go like Psyker 2.0 and have it be another like caster class that has unique casting abilities. Like this is another thing I was talking about in my like video for the six playable class that's coming out. Is like we don't have any abilities in the game that are like direct damaging except for a sail. So like maybe this is like an actual like caster class with like caster abilities, but they're like all tech themed, where you can like irradiate an area or something. Like
A
there's
hybrid
some,
caster would also be really
yeah,
neat to
yeah.
see.
So like you can actually like use your guns, so you can be shooting your guns and meleeing, but also like your abilities are damage casting instead of doing the psyker style, where like instead of shooting, you are standing there like using your staff all the time. And yeah, like that could be a
Something
really
I
cool
think
way to
they've
approach
done
it.
really well recently with things like RBs especially is giving the characters like a very unique identity within the class.
Mhm.
Like for me personally, I feel like RBDs is far more distinct than say like any of the Zealot voices. Psyker has some pretty good
That's
ones, but
true.
they've really like went above and beyond to like make sure the interactions feel pretty interesting. And having an Adeptus Mechanicus like elite unit interact with things like an Ogryn, a Zealot, a Veteran, and stuff like that opens up a ton of opportunities because like what a lot of people play Darktide for, I know it's not like gameplay is number one, but there are people that come to Darktide because they just love 40k, they want to see an Adeptus
Hmm.
Mechanicus, and they want to see an Adeptus Mechanicus interact with an Ogryn, and having a Skitarii interact with an Ogryn, that's a pretty rare interaction, and I feel like it would
Truly.
draw quite a few people to actually like take a look at that.
I think
So I'm curious what you think about that.
yeah, no, I think that like this is something that like when you're like, like doing RP like in D&D or whatever you're doing it in, it's like it's always great to build your character from like one solid idea. And I think that's why RBDs has such a sell on that is like, you know, he is upholding the Lex. Like whether you're the Maul or whatever other voices, I can't remember what the other voice names are. I always choose the Maul because he screams a lot when it gets
Oh yeah, me too.
CC'd by the Chaos Spawn. But the like the thematics behind like how he makes decisions and therefore like how it guides his interactions with the other characters and like just the way they like uphold themselves in game is just like what you're playing as, right? It's a very simple idea. It's very like cool. It's kind of badass. It's kind of funny at the same time, and I think it's just such a great marriage of concepts. And so if they could just take that, I don't actually know like what like Skitarii like do or like personality wise. As far as I understand, like technically like a lot of times they don't even have personalities, like they're just like husks that basically are being controlled by
I'm
their
sure that
mothership,
they
right?
would
Sometimes they
Uh,
do, right?
I'm sure they would give them like some kind
Yeah.
of like personality for the game because obviously Darktide needs that, and like not everything is always one to one in Darktide. We talk about lore accuracy in 40k all the time, but
Mhm.
there's not a single 40k game that's like 100% accurate to the tabletop, and the tabletop isn't even accurate to its own codexes at times with like between certain units, and let alone the Black Library books. So I think there's a lot of wiggle room in there, or a lot more wiggle room than people are willing to accept
Yeah.
at times.
Again,
But
rule of
it's
cool, like
always a
make it work.
controversial, yeah. It's
It's
a controversial topic,
it'll
especially within 40K.
be it'll be like, I mean, it'll be cool whatever they way they rule it. But like, think about like the characters that are already within Darktide. Uh there's Kayaks, who is a servitor, and he is very popular with the community. People love him. He pisses me the fuck off. He's the servitor that talks really, really slow in the loading missions. I literally downloaded a mod just so I can skip him talking. But like, people love his like personality. He's like got like a dry sense of humor, and like all the other interactions that the other Morningstar characters have with him. Like he's definitely a fan favorite. So yeah, I feel like that's one thing that they probably don't get enough credit for is like over time the cast of characters has really developed. It was something that was notably lacking when the game started, as opposed to Vermintide 2, which had like absolutely beloved characters. And
Oh, yeah, like
so
Martin,
yeah, absolutely. So like, but
Spire.
now like I think people are getting quite accommodated to the Morningstar characters, and so like whatever they add in, I'm sure they'll make it like funny, and just the more like interesting characters from all walks of life, or all walks of, I don't know, whatever you call life in the 40k universe, uh it just the better. Like, so these
I am glad
interactions
you
and
actually
abilities.
brought that up here because Dark Tide did originally like ship with this like promise of like a major story, and as these new classes have come out, we've had like pretty much the biggest story jumps like the past year especially, and a lot of that is tied around the new classes. I
Yeah.
imagine the upcoming class is also going to have a huge story leap because really in 40k when Dark Tide originally launched, they talked a lot about like we're going to have a major story focus for like some of the best
I
writers we can
know.
possibly bring on to do this, and
Don't have
like
that.
story like as far as I am concerned story is like actually non-existent in Dark Tide is something I don't pay attention to at all.
I think for a lot
But
of
if
players
they
that's true, yeah.
properly, yeah, I think like I mean obviously there's stuff there, but like most people just do not care
They
because it's
need
just not
enough
properly
like
presented to them.
connective tissue to sell it, I think is sort of where they're at now is like, okay, yeah, like we need the bare minimum. I think they've probably realized that like most players aren't engaging with it for the storyline, but like, for
Yeah,
introducing the RBDs, they absolutely had to do something to explain like how RBDs are going to
yeah.
intro
Why wouldn't
themselves onto a
RBDs be
rogue
there?
trader ship. Like it doesn't make any sense. And also why are they allying themselves with this cause when they should just be upholding the Lex? Well, it turns out that there's all this like political drama around it, and they've kind of like reached an uneasy truce with the management aboard the ship. So yeah, they could make it work. And like again, I think that like yeah, we've kind of put the overall plot of Dark Tide on pause for like a very very long time. Like there's supposedly some
Not
stuff
much
going
to
on with like
pause. Not
Nurgle.
much to pause to
Like,
be
well,
honest. But
there was like some Nurgle cultist summoning rituals going on, but like
yeah,
I don't know if that'll
I
ever
mean
be
Dark
concluded.
Communion was cool with that. That was a good map.
Dark
But
Reunion a year ago or
I
more.
feel like they're saving their big reveal because like let's say okay hypothetically let's say they
Hmm,
do actually have a plague marine. Now I feel like a plague marine has to happen eventually. It should be like a set piece of some kind.
absolutely, yeah.
Personally, I feel like it probably would be a boss fight of like some major stipulations, but
I mean,
plague marines
you've got
never bring
the
players
Karnak
back.
twins. It's like they're pretty powerful in their own right. Like they are they're wielding plasma guns. They're definitely superhuman in their strength. So like they're not afraid to throw enemies at us that are like above what rejects would actually be able to handle like in lore or on tabletop. So yeah, I could definitely see that being added, and that's something we should definitely talk about. Is or maybe we already have talked about, depending on when the release order of these videos is. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
the
some
Plague
Death Guard.
Marines coming from like the Death Guard Codex, which is where all the other enemies are pulled from for Darktide. Uh, but yeah, I think that
Yeah, they can't put those guys in because they're just too damn strong at times. But they'll probably find a way.
yeah,
They'll
I
probably
mean,
find a
especially
way.
if we are able to get Skitarii in here, like we could just power scale everything up, and
Oh, definitely.
I
And I
mean,
feel that's kind of where we're headed
Ogren
is
could
that
do it.
like
Yeah,
having yeah, I mean Ogrins are
Ogrins are
not weak at
technically strong.
all. Ogrins
Psychers are
have
supposed to be super strong too. So like, if we're actually fully realizing the lore
all right,
implication
if we're
power of these
power
characters,
scaling, the characters we have in the rejects team, like Zealot and
Zealot
Veteran are like
just
kind of
suck.
bums,
Yeah, they're
and then we
just like
just
a
have
guy with a
like
gun, and we've got a guy that can like literally just like psychically explode everyone's heads from
yeah,
like an
Psychers are our
entire
top one.
army.
I don't think
Yeah,
it's even close, like
yeah,
depending on the obviously the level of the Psyker, but Psychers are potentially number one, and Ogrins have been known to occasionally like body armor Terminators.
yeah.
But either way, I think
So
the power
Skitarii not out
scaling
of
is like
question.
yeah, so they're not out of the question at all because like Ogrins are definitely up there. Psychers are 100% up there, and it's always like one of those things where like two of these classes are just way stronger than the other ones. RBDs are also quite powerful, and I assume the next one will also be pretty strong. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a bum, but either way, I think that's pretty much everything we want to
Mhm.
cover on talking about the Skitarii here.
Yeah, man.
Have any closing thoughts on this?
No, just Fat Shark. If you're listening to this, yeah, please Skitarii. I know that you guys have heard it a million times, but yeah, it would just be it would be so amazing, and like I think it would make people super happy and excited
Yeah,
out
whatever
there.
demands Games Workshop asks of you, please take
Yeah,
them.
just cave to them. Like if they want to take
Just cave to
100% of your
all.
profits, I think it'll be worth it. Because
Yeah, probably worth
I
it.
think the major thing that I think makes you really excited for Skitarii, and I'll wrap up after this, I promise, is like it's such a big property, and like Darktide, it just doesn't have that many big name things that are pulls for people to play it. Like it's in the 40k universe, but it doesn't have anything that's like big and recognizable. And this would be so big for the game. And I always want
Yeah, the
my
most
favorite little
recognizable thing is
Darktide
probably
to
just a
succeed.
Psyker and an Ogryn.
Yeah, like you can play as those, and I think that's a pull for people. But like being able to play first person horde shooter as a AdMech would just be
They would be amazing.
like amazing. It would be huge for within 40k universe
I mean, I'm getting
entirely.
excited
So
just thinking about
yeah,
it,
I
to be
know.
honest.
All
That
right,
just sounds
let's.
super cool.
Uh,
Right. Well, on that note, guys, go subscribe to Mr. E's channel if you're not watching on Mr. E's channel,
yes, and
and
if you
subscribe
are,
to me
make
if you
certain you
like
already
content
are.
like this.
Yeah, and
That's true.
yeah, get over
Make
there
sure you're
to
already subscribed to
FTG First
Mr.
Tour
E.
Guardsman. Go to subscribe to Second Tour Guardsman. He's my favorite First Tour Guardsman bootlegger.
We
He
hate
just
that
like
guy. We
he
hate
just
that
takes
guy.
all of his clips from stream and just uploads them. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I can't believe that guy. Oh, man, really, like, AI has gone crazy. Either way, guys, thanks for watching. Let us know what you think about Skitarii as a class in Darktide in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.